If men are not approaching you, it comes down to two things. One, you're not in your core feminine energy, which is open and receptive to receiving from a masculine energy man. Two, you have self-limiting beliefs running through your mind that affects your second energy field. You are soft, warm, and open.
Approaching women is just not an option for men anymore, and there are multiple reasons why this is so. We all know how things change as life goes on, and one of the things that have definitely changed in the dating game is that men are no longer approaching women like they used to. It's not like we're in the 90s anymore, when dating was more of a game played in a world that wasn't digital. Women are increasingly unapproachable because they have a negative attitude whenever a guy tries to approach them with honesty. And with social media, there has been a dramatic and transformational change in the way dating takes place. Just go check social media, and you'll find dozens of women talking about why men need to approach them like they used to. These women are telling men that they will not budge unless they're nicely approached and then asked out. What these women lack is basic empathy. They do not understand where the men are coming from in this situation, why they're not approaching women, and why even more men will stop approaching women in the future. You see, men are sick of being missiled, turned down, used, exploited, cheated on, and ignored. They've faced all of this in the last couple of decades, and they don't want to face this anymore. Why do guys no longer approach women the same way they used to? Before social media, smartphones, and the internet, there was no direct method to contact women, no matter how far away they were from you. Men used to physically approach women and express their interest in them back then, since there was no other method to engage with women. In the modern world, both men and women have access to each other from anywhere and at any time. There was a lot of work involved back then. Everything needed to be planned in advance. It was easier and maybe a bit more exciting as well. You probably had a picture in your head of someone you saw and loved, since you didn't have the luxury of looking her up on social media. And this is what compelled guys to go see the woman in person and request their time with her. People dated largely inside their own groups back then, since that was how things operated at the time. The distances were far and wide and always became a problem. Unlike today, when you can get in touch with someone from across the world and get to know them online in real time. So, men and women both did not have such luxuries back then, and in fact, did not have the luxury of being able to interact with just about anyone they liked. There were formalities involved. The girls had to take permission. The guys had to take the girls' parents' permission before they could meet them. There was little interaction back then. Before getting married, men had a maximum of 2 opportunities to meet and get to know women. Because they had no other choice, guys had no choice but to approach women. And for this reason, I believe that the level of chemistry, connection, and mutual understanding was much higher than it is now due to the numerous distractions we face nowadays. On social media, a person seeking someone could like one person, but they might also like 5 others. They would have half-hearted conversations online, and even during dating, they'd still be engrossed in their phones trying to get the perfect click for the gram or speaking on a group chat. I mean, we are super connected now as compared to before, yet we are utterly disconnected from each other and our realities. It's crazy. So, why aren't men approaching women anymore? I think it's because men usually see the pros and cons of everything before they take any action. And the cons of approaching women these days are far higher than the pros. Men don't see any benefit in approaching women. Approaching women is almost certain to get humiliated, labeled a creep, or just ignored and socially ostracized today. Why? Because women view men on average as predators or guys just being desperate. Sure, they'll be okay if they already know a guy and want him to approach, that's another thing. But for a man to approach an unknown woman is not worth it. The risks are too great. Social humiliation and complete ignorance, along with a general fear of getting turned down, just seem too risky. The average woman would embarrass the average guy more frequently than not if he politely approached her to start a discussion. I saw a video where a man tries to speak to a lady without being impolite or weird, and she just makes a complete fool of him. As I saw this unfold, I found myself wondering why in the world I would want to approach a woman today. We also need to realize that various guys are treated differently by different women in order to understand why this is taking place. Here's the problem. Women expect men to approach them the same way they've been approaching them in the past. But in the past, circumstances were different. Men and women were more comfortable in their own skin and in their own gender. Men know they were responsible for providing for women, and women knew they were responsible for taking care of the men and for giving birth to children and raising families. So the norm at that time allowed men to approach women and allowed women to expect that men would approach them. Approaching women was a thing of the past, but the reality is that isn't anymore. Women don't realize that reality and expect the same royal treatment they used to get back then. They're so used to being handed over everything by men that they feel entitled to it all, even now. And that is the reason why men don't approach women anymore. It's because reality has changed. Why should men approach women when the circumstances are not the same anymore? Woke feminist women talk about equality all the time and expect to be treated differently when there's no reason for men to do that. Women are not okay with men being the providers and almost want to take a man's place in society, yet they still want the goodies of the past. It's the definition of hypocrisy, if you ask me. Today, men have decided just not to indulge in any behavior that allows women to disrespect and invalidate them. Women's behavior towards men has just gone down the drain, and men have realized this. They have chosen their reputation, integrity, and respect over the disrespect and humiliation extended by women towards them. Seriously. I'd be much better off not approaching women because I swear, I've heard stories of women calling the cops over guys approaching them. Obviously, there was nothing wrong with the guys. It was just that they did not fit their profile in the looks and money departments. So, why would I or anyone put myself through something like this? It doesn't make sense. Also, I think a very high percentage of women are just not even worth approaching anymore. I think that's what they want, to be publicly valued by men, so they can show off in their circles, humiliate the guy, and feel validated, which isn't happening for her, because there aren't any more guys approaching them. Men are now starting to wake up and understand all of this. They don't have time to waste worrying about women who make interacting with them pointless. Women don't appear to be aware of how essentially rigged the game is against guys. They desire what they desire. Men will also no longer engage in accepting the unsupportive behaviors of women. They're done being used for nothing. This is taking place in 2023, and I believe it will continue doing so for the ensuing 10 years. Following that, it will become customary for men to avoid approaching women, and women will have to put in a lot of effort to catch a man's eye in order to receive some of the free validation they once did. No matter how autonomous, enlightened, or free women become, their primary concern will always remain validation. They will always require approval from men and other women for all they do. The crux of the matter is this. More and more men have realized that it's better to not approach a woman unless they're 1000% sure there's going to be a positive response. Also, men have realized that they've always been the ones pursuing women, and that women have used this idea for the longest of times, playing men for fun or to increase their own social value as well as egos by rejecting men. Men see through this now. They know the real nature of women, and they're not willing to take any chances. Women will have to step up their game and become approachable for men to approach them. This means they'll have to be genuine and honest. They'll have to be positive, and they'll have to have some level of empathy in them. So, what do you guys think? Why aren't men approaching women anymore? Let me know in the comments. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and press the bell icon to subscribe for more thought-provoking videos for Men from Man Reacts.